Hey everyone, welcome to Sunny Commutes, a podcast where I combine the worlds of web development and business and share my experiences. This is podcast episode 60, which is going to be the very last episode that I'm going to do for the rest of 2018. So obviously I'm going to continue the podcast 2019, but I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about 2018, kind of just reviewing the year, doing a year in review like a lot of other people are. And of course, I'll mention my New Year's resolutions and goals for 2019. What you can also tell from the title from this episode is that I claim that this has been my most successful year. And that's definitely true. I've done a lot of new things this year. I've launched my first paid product, and which I also got customers for. So that was super exciting. I'll talk about that in this episode. Obviously, I continued to do this podcast and also rebranded my personal brand, and I redesigned my personal website as well. So I'll talk about all of that, but let's kind of jump in and just start from the beginning of the year. So starting in January, I went to Vegas for a tech conference called CES. It stands for the Consumer Electronics Show. And one of my friends that actually met online, he used to own a tech blog, which is the reason we were going to this event. So it's like half of a business trip, I would say. And we were covering the event, talking to different tech companies and going to all the different launches of things. So I went with two of my friends, Leon and Kyle, and we both met online. So this is actually the second year that we met in person, and that made it kind of more fun this time. We knew kind of what we were, putting ourselves into this time. We knew all the stuff that we were going to go, and so we decided to kind of go around Vegas and explore a little bit more this time. But that was a lot of fun. And just rewinding back a little bit, so I started the podcast in the summer of 2017. So by the time in January, I've been doing the podcast for about 6 months. And one of my goals for doing the podcast is to expand my personal brand. I want to be able to create more content, grow an audience, and things like that. So I was really motivated being on that trip to also do things like videos. I wanted to get into YouTube and do, obviously, put the podcast in video form, which I'm doing now. But I also did a vlog while I was in Vegas, and pretty much I just vlogged my trip. Kyle and Leon are in the video as well, obviously. But it was a way for me to kind of flex my creative muscles and do a little bit more beyond just, the typical things that I was doing. And that obviously was a catalyst for the podcast, doing a video form of that. So that's on my YouTube channel. It's been there, since January. And the other thing that I also did on that trip is I created a roadmap for 2018 because, it's the start of the year and I was like really excited and motivated during this time. And so I decided to make a roadmap of all the things that I plan to launch in 2018, all the things that I wanted to do. And this was pretty cool because I would look back on this roadmap throughout the year. And recently, at the end of the year, I actually look back and I'm like, wow, I completely forgot about this. And looking back, I'm like, I accomplished all of these things. The personal brand, finishing that up, kind of the website and the logo and all that. That was the last thing. I just moved that over to done, and I felt really good about completing that roadmap. So I definitely, that's one thing I actually recommend for anyone to do. For 2019 is just jot down things. And it could be like New Year's resolutions or goals, but I recommend just kind of having like specific bullet points for each thing that you want to do and how you want to complete those things. This was a cool thing that I did, and I'm glad that I did that. And I also continued to podcast, of course. In January, I published about 2 podcast episodes. And then moving on to February, I launched a course. So courses is another thing that I wanted to do. And so I launched a tutorial course on Skillshare. They reached out to me and they said, hey, you'd be, we want you to create a course on our site. We think it'd be good for the tech category on the site. And so I did that. I made a course about web development, doing an intro to web development. And this is a little different because anyone that doesn't even know coding can start the course. It's about an hour, and you kind of get a head start and see, kind of test the waters. anyone can learn it, honestly. I think that's like the big benefit of it. But yeah, it's just an hour course, and it was fun making that. I do plan on making more courses in the future, but yeah, I did that for Skillshare. So then moving on to March, things kind of slowed down, honestly. It was my birthday, so that was cool. It's crazy that I turned 25 and I'm going to turn 26 in about 3 months. So that's really crazy. We also took a family trip to Atlanta, Georgia. Went to see, I forget the names, like the Stone Mountains or something like that. And I started reading books, or more specifically, listening to books with Audible. So the first book that I read was Rise and Grind by Damon John, and talks about just different ways to, stay motivated, about different people's stories and things like that. So really good motivating book. But that's really when I kind of slowed down. And up until that point, I didn't really do much. Like I did the course, that was cool, and I had the trip back in January. But in terms of creating products and things like that, which is what I really enjoy doing, I haven't really done that for a while. So moving on to April, I read another book by a person that I follow pretty closely online. The book's titled "Crushing It" by Gary Vee, and that, like, in the middle of me listening to that book, or like towards the end, I decided, hey, I really want to spark some sort of idea and start coding some sort of project, and I want to be able to launch it and continue building on it. So I started thinking about different problems that I could have solved, specifically problems that maybe I had. And one of those is for the podcast. I wanted a website, but I didn't want to, keep updating it every time I released an episode. I didn't want to focus too much time on those things. But I wanted like a nice looking site that had all my episodes and everything. So I created a service for this to be able to automate this whole process. And it's called Iron Mic. Launched it, I started working on it in April, but I launched it in August. So it took me about 3 or 4 months to finish it from start to finish. And yeah, we got our first paying customer. We actually got a couple of paying customers. And this was really big. Like, I've never in the past have made money online from a product that I built. So this was something that was really cool. And yeah, like in 2019, that's something that I'm definitely going to continue building upon. But this was a huge accomplishment for me in 2018. I also in April started to publish podcast episodes as videos. So getting into YouTube a little bit, and doing the podcast videos. So yeah, so that was pretty cool. Like I said, I want to do different types of videos. I hope to do like tutorials and different courses as well. So I hope to do that. But just publishing the podcast in video form was really cool for me. Now, having worked on Iron Mic for those 3 or 4 months between April and August, definitely burnt me out. So I didn't really share my progress when I was working on Iron Mic during that whole time. And that was a terrible idea. I didn't take I took some breaks, but I didn't really, announce anything. I didn't like build it in the open, which is something that keeps you motivated, right? When you share your progress, when you talk to people about the project. But I didn't really quite do that. And I scope creeped the project a lot. It was an MVP, but there's definitely, like, looking back, there's definitely a lot of stuff that I could have cut. So if there was one thing that I learned during that time, is that you should definitely work on projects that are like no longer than a month, maybe like a month and a half. And the way you do that is that just turn it into really like an MVP. And I've been talking about that topic a lot, like MVPs, which stands for minimum viable product, which is where you focus just on the core features of the application or software, whatever you're building. And so we could have turned Iron Mic into a more minimal MVP. Instead, it was like more of like really a fully built product with a couple missing features. So it was like May, June, July. Now I did start to join a couple communities. I joined the Digital Era, which is like a Facebook group for entrepreneurs and things like that. That kind of kept me motivated a little bit, but I didn't really get too much value from that group. I'll talk about another community that I joined where I did get a lot of motivation and actual just a community of people, of like-minded people to help me publish more things and get my site redesign going and things like that. So So yeah, in August is when we launched Iron Mike, like I said. I also took a family trip to Cologne, Germany, and got to see a lot of relatives there and explore the city, which is very cool. I think it was about 1 week long. So yeah, it was a nice little break. I did work on Iron Mike a little bit because of some issues that popped up, but overall it was a nice trip. And I continued to publish podcast episodes again, 2 episodes in August. Back in June and July, I only did like one per month, so I definitely slowed down there. And then September and October, having worked on Iron Mike for like 4 months again, I took another break. This time it was, I guess, more planned, but I also stopped doing the podcast as well. And that was definitely unplanned. So just working again on that same project for multiple months without really not being open about it, not having sharing any progress and getting like good feedback from people to motivate me to continue working on it and things like that. Definitely burned me out during that time. Now in November, I joined a community called the Maker's Kitchen, and it's a Slack community. And this one like provides a lot more value because it's places where people are sharing about what they're working on. And so if I knew about this community back when I was working on Iron Mike, definitely would have helped. But yeah, so like everyone just, it's a lot of developers, a lot of designers, entrepreneurs, things like that. And they're talking about different products that they're working on. They're launching stuff. They're, just like doing cool stuff, and they're sharing and they're talking, and there's, fun aspect to it as well. So I joined that. I also launched a product again. So I launched Idea Scratch, which is a pretty small site. Kyle and I worked on that together. And it's a site where you can just go and jot down your ideas and have people vote on those ideas so you can figure out what to work on. Now, December was definitely my most busiest month. So I launched the site redesign, my personal site redesign, first of all. And this is part of like a full rebranding. So edited a new like profile photo. I created a logo. And it's the S sign with like sun rays coming out the top. You can go to my site. I'll have it in the show notes if you want to look. But the logo, actually, funny enough, I designed it back in January. So on that CES trip in Vegas, I designed that logo because I was like super motivated, and I knew that I was going to do a site redesign at some point. But it took me like a whole year to do that redesign. So it's really funny, but I finally have like a logo that I really like. Have a dark color scheme, which I prefer, and like a new banner and things like that. So across like all different social media platforms, my website and my YouTube channel and all that, it's going to kind of look consistent. The branding is going to be more with like what I am. And I wrote an article. Actually, haven't written it yet, but I'm hoping by the time I launch this episode, I will have written the article. It's going to be about the redesign. And I also published 4 podcast episodes, including this one. So I did a podcast episode every week. I did a video for each episode. I did like edited clips out of them. And I also started a newsletter. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff that I did. But this is, again, all part of that personal brand, which you can all find out on my website. And also did some live streaming as well on Twitch, just me coding my personal site mostly. And just started like logging my tasks more and keeping track of all the things that I do and making sure that I do take breaks from time to time. So that's pretty much it for 2018. That was all the things that I did. And just kind of looking back and, looking at every single accomplishment, I had to like look through, a bunch of history and stuff to figure out what I did during those months, but just kind of jotting it all down really helps to see all the different accomplishments that I've had. Like I forgot that I read books this year, I forgot that, how I started doing videos this year too. I feel like I grew so accustomed to it, and I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, it's just, I've been doing it forever. But no, I actually started a lot of things this year, and I did a lot to grow my personal brand as well. So that is something that I'm going to continue to do more in 2019. But with the rebrand, the new site, the new assets that I have, I hope that that's definitely going to help and keep everything consistent and keep me on a weekly schedule which is something that I've started doing in December. So pretty cool. Now, also kind of moving to my goals real quick. Can talk about these just a little bit. So I have three main goals for 2019. One is to set myself up for success. Two, create consistent content. And three, grow existing projects. Actually tweeted this out, and it's pinned to my profile right now, so it's like a tweet thread. And the last two are pretty self-explanatory. Grow existing projects. I'm going to continue working on Iron Mike, Idea Scratch. There's another project that I have released like 2 years ago or 3 years ago that I'm going to kind of refresh and work on that. And obviously the podcast as well. Create consistent content. That's pretty simple. Like I'm going to do more of a weekly schedule and release different things. And the newsletter is something that I hope to consolidate, kind of summarize everything, and send out an email to subscribers at the end of each week. And then the first one's a little confusing, like set myself up for success. What does that actually mean? Because it's pretty general, right? And it is. But I do have some plans for this. I want to just basically get rid of all distractions and simplify my workflow as much as possible so that when I do create content, I'm not, doing things like mundane things that are just wasting my time. I want to streamline my process as much as possible, automate as many things as possible, maybe launch some products that help me do that too, like I did with Iron Mike, and just make it super easy for me to stay on track of my goals and be able to launch the things that I want to launch and create content that I want to create. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's 2018. That's a wrap. And 2019, I'm really looking forward to it. I definitely love to hear what your goals are, and kind of if you learned anything from this episode. Hopefully, you'll create a roadmap and create some resolutions with planned bullet points on how you'll actually execute on those goals. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you are watching on YouTube. And, follow me on all the things. Follow me on Twitter at SunnySyncIO. Would love some feedback. Be able to connect more on there. The website for all the podcasts or all the episodes and show notes, sunnycommutes.fm. And give me feedback on the new site, sunnysync.io. I'll have all the links in the show notes. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you think of the website. And Happy New Year. If you're watching in 2019, let me know where you got your time machine from, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.